facilitating minister of Muhammad Muslim. So our press conference will begin right now. We will have a few speakers that will precede Student Minister William. And I'm going to just give you the list of the speakers who are going to speak in their order. First, we're going to have Jamal E. Smith from the YWCA, the Southeastern Wisconsin region. Following him, we will have Dr. Patricia McManus of the Black Health Coalition. We will also have Pastor Harold Moore from Mercy Memorial Church. We will have Brian Verdeen from the Martin Luther King Justice Coalition. We will have Ashanti Hamilton, who is now. We also have Ashanti Hamilton, who is over the Common Council. And then we'll round it up with Student Minister William Muhammad. And if time permits, we will have a few other speakers. All right. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our first speaker will be Brother Jamal. Brother Jamal, you come to the lecture. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Definitely honored to be here. I'm honored to be standing in solidarity and support of the Muhammad Muslim III, the Nation of Islam. When I heard about the report that was discrediting such a valuable asset to our community and discussing a hate group, I felt that it was incumbent upon me to comment and speak upon all of the greatness that has been of the Nation of Islam in this community and abroad. There is a quote that says, the nation's commitment to universal justice and equality are contradicted by the way it treats its principal minority race. And this has been a stance that the Nation of Islam has taken in fighting against oppression and bigotry and hatred that has been displayed countless times against our communities. So if you're saying that a hate group, the characteristics of a hate group is fighting against injustice, it's fighting against inequality, it's fighting against oppression, it's fighting against bigotry, then they would absolutely qualify as a hate group. But if you're talking about just a means of saying that they are elevating at the expense of the mindset of eradicating another group of people, then you would totally be misled by what the Nation of Islam stands for. And I've had the pleasure to walk and stand and speak and serve next to good brothers like Shah Muhammad, William Muhammad, and David Muhammad, as well as sisters of the Nation of Islam and Muhammad Muslim III. And the only hatred that I would say that they are in support of is the support of fight of that speaks up to bigotry, that speaks against oppression, speaks against racism. So there has to be a conversation of how do you define hatred? Because when you put a group that is in solidarity and that stand in support of their community in line with such a group like Stalin Records or the New World Order, which is really discussing white supremacy, which is discussing how they are elevating their community or their so-called allegiance or superiority by any means necessary, of saying that how we are interested in eradicating a group for the benefit of our own, that is a complete misleading statement to say that the Nation of Islam stands in next to them. So it was my honor, it was an obligation for me to stand and speak in support, and I will continue to speak in support of Muhammad Muslim III, Student Minister William Muhammad, and others, in saying that this is totally not the definition of a hate group. This is a group that only elevates love and respect for its own people, which I see no fault in that. So again, we need to make sure that we define exactly what hate is, and we need to stop placing people in categories that don't belong there. Because this is truly a travesty that we're standing here having to speak and talk about an organization that has done nothing but greatness for the black community, and how it's being discredited by a report that absolutely knows nothing about the ideology of the Nation of Islam. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll have Dr. Patricia McManus from the Black Health Coalition.
Hello, my name is Pat McManus. I'm with the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin. Our organization has been in existence now for 30 years. We primarily work with the communities in terms of advocacy and education. And so certainly this particular moment is just extremely important. When I heard about what was put in the paper, first thing I did was go in and look and see what it said. And I mean, I'm aware of the Law Poverty Center, but I am concerned about what do they do to actually document. I believe in information. How they document anything that calls somebody a hate group, rather than just using a name or trying to look at what happened many, many years ago when I still didn't think it was a hate group. It was a group that was the 60s. I'm probably one of the older ones, elders around here, been around a while. So I would be easier when they say, well, we used to hear a lot of stuff about it that maybe we believed until you start looking to see what do people do. Not who they are, not who they're attached to, but they're attached to a group. And certainly, Student Minister, he's one of the first people in our community that we go to help us when violence is happening. Mm-hmm. If I can call him and say, look, I got somebody, they're fighting, can you help me? Can you do this, can you help? This is why this is just unbelievable to me, that this is even in there. But I want to tell you what's even more unbelievable is the number of Black folks in this community who should be here and who aren't.
Come on.
Just say it like it is, I'm sorry. But they want to hide. You know, they don't want to come out and say, he's got something to say, but say it based on what? And there's no facts that could speak to this organization being a hate group when they don't ask us for money, like so many people do. They want money, they want this, they want that, they want to come in our community to make money off of us. Nation of Islam from Milwaukee is here because their love for the community and helping us do better. And so I'm very proud to be here, and I'm very proud of the Nation of Islam in Milwaukee.
Next, we'll have Pastor Harold Moore from Mercy Memorial Baptist Church.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Pastor Harold Horn, pastor of the Mercy Memorial Missionary Baptist Church. I stand here this morning in support and solidarity with the Nation of Islam and Muhammad Mosque number 3. I'm well familiar with the brothers and the sisters of Muhammad Mosque number 3, well aware, and I'm familiar with the work that they do in our community. It's always about promoting peace and harmony. As Dr. McManus has just said, oftentimes when there's a crisis in the community, they've been people that we can turn to bring about stability. And so I was somewhat taken back by the reports that they've been labeled as a hate group. Never heard any hate coming from the men and the women of the nation. Never seen them display any type of hatred toward anybody. And so I'm here today just to let them know that I stand in support of them, and the notion that they promote hate is just wrong. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll have Brother Brian Verdeen from the Martin Luther King Coalition.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I too stand in firm solidarity with the Nation of Islam Mosque number 3. I'm born and raised in Milwaukee. More specifically, I am a north side Milwaukeean. I've lived on the north side of Milwaukee all of my life. In fact, the first time I entered this building, it was when it was an Oasis Theater, and I watched a movie called The Tarantula, and we ran back home to 14th and Clark, and was scared to death. But thank you, Claiborne Benson, for turning this into such a wonderful place to be.
Yes, sir.
I've worked with the nation, sisters and brothers of the nation in the public schools. I've worked and marched with the nation in regards to police brutality matters.
Yes, sir.
I'm well aware of their efforts to help sisters and brothers who've been incarcerated and hopefully getting them out successfully returned to the community. I'm well aware of their efforts to feed and clothe the hungry. And so I'm terribly disappointed in the Milwaukee media in particular. I did see Channel 4, and I did see Channel 58, I did call Channel 58 since they put the nation's headquarters on blast and actually showed where they existed. And I asked to speak to the program director, and unfortunately that person never called me back, because I thought it was a very serious matter. All one needed to do was go over there on the active scene and knock on the door and ask to speak to one of the brothers or sisters of the Nation of Islam, and it would be clear that it's not a hate group at all. In fact, it's been stated here as well, everyone I've ever worked with in the Nation always exuded love and concern for our community. And that's why I knew I had to be here today, because to try to tag the Nation with such organizations as the KKK or the Nazis, or groups that are actually known to have murdered, killed, defamed, burned down mosques, turn over cemetery stones, you'll never see that kind of behavior coming from sisters and brothers in the Nation of Islam.
That's right.
In fact, you'll find sisters and brothers in the nations to be some of the finest role models that our community has. And so in that vein, I'm very happy to be here. I also reached out to the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I asked to speak to someone in charge or someone that could please explain to me how Milwaukee's Mosque number 3 got on this list. And I did return a call from there. I'm terribly disappointed in that group too, because I know a little bit about their history. It started out more or less like a mom and pop organization documenting all of the hate groups in the United States. Now it's turned into a multi-million-dollar organization. So I think it behooves the media in particular, just knock on the door. The door is open. I've been invited to the mosque many times. Many times. I'm ashamed to say I've only been there a few times, you know. But and also in terms of the community programs that the Nation puts on, I've had the pleasure of attending many of the public entities that the Nation has put on for our community. So I would just again ask the media to take the time, tell your people, Channel 4, Channel 12, 58, tell your people to knock on the door and get to know the people of the Nation. In fact, if you had any community relations, you'd have known not to even publish that story to begin with. You'd have said, well, we know the Nation of Islam Mosque number 3 in Milwaukee has nothing to do with hate. We know this. So I'm asking you all to take time to know this as well, because this is something I've known for at least the last 30 years that I've had the opportunity to work with members of the Nation of Islam. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Next, we'll have Earl Ingram from the Earl Ingram Radio Show.
Good afternoon. My name is Earl Ingram. I'm the morning show host of Real Resistance Radio. And I would be remiss if I didn't show up here to speak on behalf of the Nation of Islam. Because about 25 years or so, I was a wayward young man who didn't have direction, was kind of wandering around life like many young men. And I was invited to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at the time at Cooley Auditorium. I never will forget it. The name of the speech was Stop the Killing. From that point to now, I have been directly involved with many of the sisters and brothers from the Nation. And I, like Dr. McManus, am disappointed. Because for what these sisters and brothers from the Nation have done for this community, I'm a lifelong resident of the community, born here, going to die here. This block shouldn't have been able to hold the amount of people who they've helped and the impact that they've had on the lives of many of us. I was even honored. The greatest honor of my life was to have been invited to have dinner with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
It will always stick with me, because every time I hear somebody call him something that I know he's not, or even to talk about this group, the local representatives of the Nation of Islam, it hurts my heart. So last week, I invited Minister William on to challenge what has been said. And he did what he always does, a more than admirable job at explaining exactly what the Nation does. I love these sisters and brothers from the depths of my heart. I know the work that they have done, not just in the city of Milwaukee, but across the nation, to somehow equate them with hate in any manner is as wayward as anything could possibly be. So I stand here and say to all in the media and those who are afraid to stand with the Nation of Islam, maybe you need to walk into the roughest neighborhoods of our community as they do without weapons. Maybe you should stand and challenge people who are doing all the wrong things in our neighborhood and talk to them and offer love and brotherhood to them as opposed to a gun. Maybe if you were willing to do that and get to know who they are, then you would be here standing as I am and everybody else is to support them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have a statement from the State Representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student Minister William Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad. We thank him for raising from among us a divine leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank him for blessing us with their representative, the man that is my spiritual father, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I greet you all in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
On February the 26th, 2019, TMJ4, Channel 58 reported that according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Nation of Islam's local mosque, Muhammad Mosque No. 3, is on a list of 15 hate groups functioning in the state of Wisconsin. Channel 58 went as far as to report their story along with video of Muhammad Mosque No. 3, placing us as the face of hate to the public. And we do not take the escalation of this slander lightly. In an environment of heightened racist violence and Islamophobia, to target our mosque could potentially direct misguided individuals to our location to do harm to the believers, our families, our children, and our guests. The charge of hate group and the targeting of Muhammad Mosque No. 3 is a grave injustice, not just to us, but it is an injustice to the community that we serve. This label on the Nation of Islam has no basis in law or in fact. The work we have been blessed to do in this city is well known, as you have heard. To label us with groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis, and other white supremacists who have a record of hate and violence is defamatory and completely unjustified. Under the guidance and inspiration of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam has worked for decades in the city of Milwaukee to raise our people from mental, moral, and spiritual death into life, that they may be of greater service to themselves, their family, and their people. Following the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's directive to make our community a decent and safe place to live, the men in the Nation of Islam, known as the Fruit of Islam, or FOI, go into our community door to door promoting peace. We set up a conflict resolution hotline to help our people resolve their disputes in a peaceful manner through lawful dialogue. We've worked closely with the Milwaukee Health Department Office of Violence Prevention, providing conflict resolution training and helping to strategize a campaign to mitigate violence in the community. We work with advocates and agencies to address domestic violence and sex trafficking by promoting the respect and protection of our women and girls. Members of the Nation of Islam are thoroughly integrated into the city of Milwaukee, serving on the city council in key capacities, serving in county government in key capacities, serving as executive directors of various organizations in key capacities. These are all registered members of the Nation of Islam. We have police officers in the city of Milwaukee. We're civil servants. We're business people working all in the city of Milwaukee. In 1991, as Brother Earl stated, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam organized right here in this city a Stop the Killing rally in this city to address the senseless violence in this community. In 1995, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam made a call and organized thousands of black men from Wisconsin to travel to Washington, D.C. for the Million Man March. We didn't call them out of the spirit of hate to commit violence. They were called in the spirit of atonement. We asked them to repent for our negligence as fathers and husbands and for the destructive forces we have been in our community. We asked those men to go before the world and ask God for forgiveness. The effect of the Million Man March was felt in this city, in every major city in this country. You saw drastically reduced violence, which mayors and police chiefs took credit for. You saw an increase in voter registration. You saw an increase in child adoption. You saw an increase of church membership and organization membership, because that was the directive that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave those men that went to Washington, D.C. In 2000, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam invited those men to come back to Washington, D.C., this time with their families, to encourage strong marriage and family life. In 2005, it was the Millions More movement in Washington, D.C., which produced the local organizing committees in this city and all across the nation, setting up 9 ministries to organize the community that we may be advocates and serve our community according to our gifts and our interests. In 2015, it was Justice or Else, calling for the unity of the black, the brown, the red, and the disenfranchised of this nation to give justice to all. Jesus said, I have shown you many good works from my Father. For which of these do you stone me?
Come on.
Which of the good works of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan justifies the Southern Poverty Law Center's labeling the Nation of Islam a hate group?
All right.
Come on and teach.
For years, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam have been falsely accused of teaching hate. This is a predicate for evil that they intend to do against us. Yes. The Southern Poverty Law Center acts as an agent of the U.S. government. Yes. So when they label an organization a hate group, that group becomes a target for law enforcement as well. Yes. Their aim is to isolate us with these false charges. They don't have to prove anything. They just utilize the control that they have of the media to repeat it over and over again. The intent is to frighten our allies and our supporters, to prevent those who don't know, and to prevent those who don't know us from ever benefiting from the good work that God has blessed us to do. To keep us out of the schools, colleges, and universities, that we may inspire young people with the truth that they are born to know. The real hate group is the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's right. And those satanic forces that work to hinder the life-saving work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Come on.
They would rather see our community languish in ignorance, confusion, and self-destruction. They offer no program or solution for the many problems that we face in the black community in Milwaukee.
Yes, sir.
Instead, they are working to deprive the black community of a man and an organization whose total focus has been the transformation of human life.
That's right.
The attack on the Nation of Islam is an attack on the community that we serve. I'd like to thank everyone who called Channel 58 to express their outrage for targeting the mosque in such an irresponsible manner. Most of our people know that our motivation for the work that we do is rooted in love and not hate. I thank all of these pastors, all of these community leaders who are standing with us today. May Allah bless us to continue the good work that God has blessed us to do. May God bless us to be more unified and stronger in our efforts to save our people.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Brother Claiborne Benson for allowing us to use this beautiful opportunity. This concludes my statement. Thank you.
At this point, if anyone from the media has any questions that they would like to put to Minister Williams, you can do it this time. Yes, sir.
So we reached out to the Southern Poverty Law Center to ask why this group was placed on this list, and they sent us a statement that reads in part, quote, "The Nation of Islam is a black nationalist group whose basic foundation is that all whites are blue-eyed devils and that Jews ran the slave trade." What is your response to that?
We believe in what Prophet Muhammad taught, that there is no superiority over the white, over the black over the white. The greatest are those who are submissive, most submissive to the will of God. So Minister Farrakhan has taught us what devil is. A devil is an opposer to God.
All right.
So we can get up in the morning and look in the mirror and see a devil.
All right.
In terms of your answer or your question about the slave trade, you know, we have been under attack. Minister Farrakhan has been under attack for years, being called an anti-Semite. And so the Nation of Islam Research Department went into the libraries and the writings of Jewish writers, Jewish scholars, Jewish historians, Jewish rabbis, and compiled a record of Jewish involvement in the slave trade. That they were some of the architects of the slave trade. That was the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, part one.
Yes, sir.
And you are certainly free to get that. In the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, part two, we chronicle, once again, from Jewish scholars, historians, and rabbis, the Jewish involvement in Jim Crow laws, the Jewish involvement in locking black people out of the labor force, the Jewish involvement in crafting the slave sharecropping system.
Yes, sir.
It's not our writing. It's the writing of those who are Jewish people. And so we only just did the research and compiled it in a book.
Come on.
So it's not us that say that they're involved in the slave trade alone. Their own historians and history
Come on.
record documents it.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Any other questions?
So does that mean there is hatred from your group toward Jewish people still today?
No, it only means that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. When you listen to the Jewish people and their concerns about the Holocaust. They say never again.
See?
Come
We want
on.
to make sure that the history of what happened to them is known.
Yes, sir.
This history of the secret relationship between blacks and Jews is not a well-known history. And we who are black people should be self-respecting enough to want to know what happened to us,
Come on.
to want to know our history, that we may teach our children, that we may teach our people, so that history does not repeat itself. Because history informs the present as well as the future.
Never again.
Any other questions? Well, I thank you so much for your response to our call to address these slanderous attacks. At this time, that concludes our press conference, unless there's someone else. I want to thank all of you all for coming out. Give yourself a hand. You can see there's a wide segment of our community.
Brother Minister,
Yes, sir.
let's hear a little something.
Yes, sir.
All right, not much, because I'm not known to be wordy.
This is Judge Stanton.
My current identity is the father of Alderman Russell Stanford II. That's who I am right now. But I looked at one of the several websites dealing with the Southern Poverty Lawless Center.
Come on.
And one of the things that they have complained about is that the nation seeks separation. Now, if you saw this week's newspaper, one of the players for the Bucks said this is the most segregated place he's ever seen.
Come
Lawrence
on.
said the same thing
Yes, sir.
a while back. So there's a difference between segregated and separated.
Yes, sir.
See, we are segregated and separated right now. So what we want is separation without segregation.
Yes, sir.
Now, a while back in the 80s, there was a big movement for reparations. Reparations had a height and then it declined. But I maintain, and I was one of the forces, the voices, supportive of it, and there were resolutions that were passed around the nation. Even Milwaukee adopted one, the Common Council. Then I looked at what the Muslims want, and lo and behold, reparations has been there for I don't know how many years, but that's one of the things that they want. They want separation, they want land, they want sustenance for at least 20 to 25 years,
Yes.
after which we, and I put myself in there because I'm gone,
Come on.
we go for ourselves.
Yes, sir.
So now there's another group of folks that's been on the tee for over 70 years. And they get, we don't need 70 years. We just need 20 to 25 and we will be all right. One last point. The nation stands for freedom, justice, and equality.
Yes.
And that's a very important sequence. Freedom means that the hold on you, your body and your mind, have been loosened and you set free.
Yes, sir.
That's freedom. Justice can't be anything else but reparations.
Come on.
After we worked hundreds of years for nothing.
Come on.
After which you then have equality. So equality is icing, the third level. That's what we want. But you got to go through 1 and 2. And once we get our land and our separation and our independence and our government and our policies is enforced, then we will have genuine equality. So
Yes,
I
sir.
maintain that reparations and separations are inseparable.
That's right.
Freedom, justice, and equality are inseparable from reparations, and that's what time it is, y'all.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
and I
sir.
thank the good Lord for the members of the United States Congress who are leading the charge against this system. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and that concludes this press conference. Thank you.